everyone, welcome back. Laure here, and I'm joined with Hans Sama. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you too. Well, I feel pretty great about today.
Yeah, you ended up last week on a defeat, and today you clearly picked it up with a really rapid victory. I mean, what was your mindset going after the defeat last week?
After the defeat last week, I mean, we did some small mistake, but making small mistakes at this kind of level is cost a lot during Fnatic, and we worked hard to improve our knowledge and in terms of a lot of situations. But in this game, it's was different from other games. I would say this game was more of like a solo queue game because I just played Draven against a good match. Having a good matchup against them, then well, I felt like it was more of a solo queue game.
Yeah, and that's funny because you even said during an interview that you were feeling off lately, like maybe you would switch to AP champion if it was needed. So, how did you feel going into this game? What made you perform so well today?
I didn't expect to play Draven actually. I practiced some picks coming up to this week, but I didn't expect them to pick Syrakan. And well, I didn't practice Draven at all, but when I see good matchups with Draven, then I just want to pick it because that's the champion that I'm really comfortable on, and I'm confident that I can just carry a game with that.
Yeah, and this confidence is really important, and that brought you to be the player of the game today. How do you feel about it?
It's been a while, I think. I mean, I haven't been in the vote in Twitter, I think, for a while, and well, it feels pretty great again to be player of the game.
Awesome. Last question for you, because we're halfway through the split, even more now. You're still on top, but do you feel threatened by other teams right now, and do you think that you will stay on top until the end of week 9?
I'm not really threatened by any team right now. We just need to play our game as a team, and I will always be confident when I'm confident about my team play. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the good word. Well, once again, congratulations on today.
Thank
and
you.
For more on next game, let's send it over to Shox and Deficio. Take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, Laure. Indeed, Hans Sama, player of the game with 68% of the votes. Sometimes people complain, oh, it's always the big carry. This time I think it was warranted, even though Mickey X's bindings were insane.
Always a duo. It's a partnership down the bot lane, for sure. I'm mad, though. The guy promised me AP champion.
He did.
Last time I looked at Draven's numbers, he's not an AP champ. So I feel like he fooled us all.
I also loved how he said, well, it's not really a champion I ever pick, but when you're Hans Sama, it is in your blood, it is in your
right
veins,
there.
it is there. You can always go back to Draven, and that's exactly what he did. Another player of the game and another win for Misfits back on the board. But now, our next game is H2K versus Roccat. We have some important updates on the front of H2K. They are unfortunately dealing with some medical emergencies, so Kadril will be subbing in for Selfie, and on the coaching side, Kelsey Moser will now be the on-stage coach instead of a veteran who's also not feeling well. Obviously, our best wishes to both veteran and to Selfie, but what does this now change for H2K? Kadril, the guy who was subbed out last spring when it wasn't going well.
And the guy who's actually been trying to become a jungler is now suddenly put in a tough position, having to replace Selfie. So this obviously is very, very hard for them. It's actually Shook sitting in the mid lane
so
for
Shook
now.
Could probably be in the mid lane.
They can move around as much as they want.
I just got a cue from production that it is indeed Shook in the mid lane
Shook
and
in the mid lane.
in the jungle.
There we go. Even more surprises right here when we're talking about it. It is crazy for H2K with all these different changes. It's not what you need right now if you're trying to win games, except for that one little thing where sometimes a random change can spark something new, like a new fire, a new voice in the team can suddenly change a little bit. And they are sitting 0-10. Like, it can't really get a lot worse for them. So there is a chance that this could do something good, but obviously you would prefer to be here with your main lineup.
You would. Possible redemption arc for Kadril is through the roof, though. That could be crazy.
Yeah, he has almost everything to win right now. Because last time he was on H2K, he played 2 games and he was out. Shook took his spot. And now he's playing next to him.
And he's playing jungle, and he's up versus Memento and Rocket. Now, Rocket is one of our main competitors for a playoff spot. They got to playoffs in spring, and they have been putting up some incredible performances throughout the summer split, not in the least by beating G2 Esports last week. And if we take a look at the details of that matchup specifically, that was quite a stomp. That was from start to finish, Rocket knowing exactly what they needed to do.
And I want to quickly look at the draft from them. Look, there's a Kindred in the jungle, and there's a Rakan in the bot lane. Some of these picks are very important for these guys, especially the Kindred, aggressive early jungler where you can fight. Because what happens when Rocket is doing well is Memento is active in the early game. He's not on a farming, scaling jungler. He's in the lanes, and he's forcing plays with the rest of his team. And there's a reason Prophet dealt 15,000 damage on a Rumble here, and that's because everything started in that top lane.
As we take a look at how exactly Rocket beat G2, we can draw the parallels with how they like to win games throughout the EULCS. As you say, starting with that first replay we're going to take another look at of the top lane turnaround, where Memento, we know if he gets the first kill, if he gets off to a great start, there is mayhem on the horizon.
Yeah, and this is G2 obviously at first with the gank, but they completely miss time when they actually want to go all in, and Prophet gets a flash out. That buys time for Memento, who read the situation saying, I think they're going top lane. And this is what you need to be able to do as a good early game jungler, because you got to understand where's the enemy applying pressure if you want to fight them. And his numbers in the early game, they are great. It shows how important he is for this team. Like K plus A at 15 being 2.6 across all these different games, that's a great average to have. Because there's so many games where you just 0-0-0 or, you know, only 1 kill, 1 assist here and there. It's very positive when he's on a carry. What we don't want to see is the tanks in the jungle.
We'll talk about that later, because this is what works for them. They are 5-0 with a lead at 15 minutes, and the important thing is here that it's not just Memento that's ahead. He gets Prophet ahead, who then translates that advantage into the snowball, and the entire team does a really good job of getting that snowball going.
And that's why watching Rocket half the time is super fun, because they are really good at playing with vision around Baron. They can actually team fight when they're ahead in these different carries. They just have a lot of inconsistent players who, when they fall behind, fall really far down and suddenly out of the game. But when they get ahead, I love watching these guys, which is also why they are the most frustrating team in the EULCS, because they keep going 1-1. And you never know if they're beating the top team or losing to the bottom team. Anything can happen.
I think that makes it interesting. You talk about the engages and about the snowball, and one of the guys who is always there is Norscaron in the bottom lane. In that G2 game specifically, he was on Rakan, and you know when you see Norscaron on an engaged support, on a support that can roam and make the moves, that he is going to pull that trigger every single time.
This is a great meta for him, because you're not stuck on Janna, Lulu, these kind of defensive supports. You are on things where you can actually carry the games, and that is important, because Memento can't do it on his own in the early game. So when you have this setup where you have Norscaron unlocked, a lot of the other pro supports are praising this guy for being way better than he looks sometimes when they're losing, because he's mechanically very gifted and he's not afraid. This guy's young. He's like 18 years old at this point, and he's still jumping in your face every time.
And as said, they are 5-5, so they do go 1-1 every single week. But you just said, I don't care, but I don't want to see them on anything that's a different style. I always want to see them go in the early game.
Because when they pick the slow comps, when they tell us, oh, we want to play more styles, we have to be able to play team fights as well if we want to do well in playoffs. I don't care about that. I care about Rocket getting to playoffs. And they get there by playing one style, and that's early game.
$1 million question. Do they make it to playoffs?
I think Rocket right now, if I look at all the teams that's 5-5, I'm going to say Rocket and Splyce make it into playoffs.
Rocket and Splyce make it into
Don't make me regret it, Rocket.
There we go.
You
have
now.
the official seal of approval. Absolutely huge game of Rocket over H2K coming up right now. So let's head over to the casters.
Thank you very much, Sharks. Let's see what Rocket can do and what curveballs we can expect from H2K. As you've already heard, some medical emergencies mean that Kadril will be back on stage for H2K, and Kelsey Moser will be taking over the coach role. How difficult is it to prepare for, you know, new players, different theories? Put yourself into Rocket and Freddy's shoes, not really knowing what H2K are going to pull out.
I mean, I feel like you just have to play like there's no nameplates on right now, because not only is there a mid lane substitution, but it's also a different coach on stage. There's a lot of different things that we're going to be seeing out of H2K, and I don't think you can realistically prepare all that well for it.
No, it's so difficult. So let's see what Rocket have prepared. H2K 0-10, Rocket 5-5. On the cusp of making it into those players just a few weeks away. Kelsey Moser, of course, there you go on stage. She has been working with H2K for quite a few months now, in fact, sitting in the background as one of the analysts. And we see Graga, second game we've seen her banned out. Is this going to become more of a trend on 8.14?
Yeah, we're going to be seeing more Gragas. We were already seeing him last week back on 8.13. Already saw some games. Smitty J played that on his side, but a lot of different top laners feel like it does give you not only a pretty safe and strong laning phase, but also really solid engage later on.
Well, talking about that, solid engage, Talia, Nocturne, Rakan, they're all gone.
Aatrox is left open. That's
now,
spooky.
is he weaker? I heard he was nerfed, but pros don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, so he's 100% is nerfed. Overall power has been taken down. The difference is where he was hurt in the early game, right? Some ratios on the Q, a little bit of that. His buffs were in the scaling department. So the E cooldown, that's his dash, went down dramatically at maximum rank. So you are going to see much more impact out of an Aatrox in later game team fights.
Okay, so that's a benefit to H2K if the game goes long. Near insta-locks on the Kindred and the Morgana. This is in response to Camille and Orianna. So we're starting to see a slightly different flavor of draft, and that Orianna picking up steam here in Europe.
Yeah, I love seeing the Orianna. I also like the Camille here because it can flex between Prophet and Memento, and people have been, throwing around counter picks for Aatrox in the top lane. Camille is one of those that has come up. The mobility means she can dodge away from the sweet spots, and she's just all around a very strong duelist. So this might shoehorn the Aatrox into the mid lane, and we'll see if Roccat have an answer to it there.
Oh, it's so exciting to watch. Now, of course, on stage, Shook is seated in the mid lane spot. Kadril in the jungle. Kadril, last time we saw him, did not have a strong performance when he was moved to the jungle from mid lane, but he's been playing a lot of jungle recently.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at solo queue right now, rank 3 on the ladder. He hasn't played a mid-game game on his account in the last month on his main account, so it is impressive to see his sort of growth after he did make that role transition, and really surprising even with that to see him going into the jungle role and displacing Shook.
Oh, going to be so interesting to see how the last 40 seconds of this pick ban plays out. Of course, once that timer hits 20 seconds after the teams are locked, you can no longer swap champions. So that will give us a very clear indication of who's going to be taking what where. Hiku has got his hands on Varus. This will be the first time that he has played this champion in summer. And in terms of the follow-ups, Galio, Jaime, and Rumble taking off the table.
And quick shot, LCK is leaking over here into the LCS. Varus has been a pick for the last few weeks, so we've seen so much over there. The strength, not only in long-range safe engage with that ultimate, but also some strong laning phase presence as well. Means that he is a pretty solid overall pick and can be seeing play with not just the Blade of the Ruined King, but the Rage Blade as well. There's a lot of different options for him in the build path.
Okay, very interesting. Do you have a preference on build path that you like to see?
So I actually like seeing Blade of the Ruined King earlier on the Varus. Ever since those Rage Blade nerfs a few patches ago, still get that later on into the build, but if you want a little bit more survivability in the lane and earlier damage, the Blade of the Ruined King is my bet on that.
I like that. We'll see how the rest of H2K's comp shapes up, whether or not that changes any priorities. The bottom lane is now locked in for Roccat. Norscaron will be playing that Tahm Kench. Obviously, taking a look at Sheriff's gear there, apparently.
Check it out.
I was a bit confused as to what that was. What would you expect to see from Roccat now? Because obviously Memento can take that Camille. Obviously it can go to Prophet as well. Kai'Sa now locked in, and Lulu potentially. So where do you see Roccat pivoting now that we see H2K's comp?
Well, if the Lulu is locked in, then it very likely means it will be Aatrox in the top lane. So I say leave that Camille for Prophet up there, unless they have an even better pick. There have been rumors, some mumblings about perhaps a Fiora matchup into that Aatrox. But regardless here, I love what I see on the side of H2K. We thought for a second maybe it's going to be the Lulu mid, but it will be Shook on a supportive mid laner regardless. The Morgana is that option.
Oh, very, very interesting. Dark Binding for days, fairly safe-ish.
Sure.
Laning phase, I suppose. Look to neutralize that Orianna. And now Roccat will give us the answer. Where do they put Camille? In the jungle with Memento. He has already played that twice, undefeated, and a KDA of 12, 3, and 14. So Memento is very comfortable on this champion.
Yeah, he is, and it's an early game playmaker. That's what you always want to see Memento piloting in the jungle. We're definitely going to see some early action out of him, and it'll be especially interesting to see how he matches up against Kadril. Kadril's return into the LCS on a carry-oriented champion himself means that there's a lot of potential for these two players to butt heads.
All right, 7 seconds left before you and I get proven wrong. Kadril still sitting on that Kindred. 2, 1 will not be changing, and that's it. Mid lane shook. Kadril returns to the EU LCS stage for his first game in a very long time back in the jungle. And the question is there more or less pressure? When the team is at 0-10 and expectations are, let's be frank, very, very low, this is where Kadril can potentially step up, break that losing streak, and prevent H2K going on to set or break a losing streak record.
Yeah, well, I mean, we actually heard from Memento last week during the post-game lobby that he saw H2K when they played against Schalke and they had that good early mid-game, that it felt like they weren't playing with any strings attached. They were making plays, they weren't scared to make mistakes, and if they're going to pick up wins, they have to have that same mindset.
Ooh, it's so interesting. I love it when we get these substitution situations that really make you ask more questions, that really make you dive deeper into the teams and the players and their mindsets. Talking about those teams and players and mindsets, Memento has been a make or break jungler for Roccat. We see his face just as we load up onto the screen. And of course, he's going up against Kadril. Now, I do think I want to take a closer look at Kadril because he is number 3 in solo queue, but the skills that get you to number 3 in solo queue do not necessarily translate to the stage. So what do you want to see for Kadril on Kindred going into this Roccat lineup?
Well, honestly, on the Kindred, you can play a little bit more comfortably, a little bit more laid back, and just try to farm up a little bit. But when you actually look at the champions he's played most in solo queue, it's the Graves, it's the Kha'Zix, it's the Nidalee. So it fits under this umbrella of aggressive, carry-oriented jungler. So I am excited to see what he can do on a champion like the Kindred, because it falls into that same wheelhouse and should be relatively comfortable for him.
Yeah, and I think it is very important. The reason I keep stressing he's number 3 in solo queue, and I keep mentioning it, the last time we saw Kadril on the EU LCS stage, his stats were abysmal. He was moved from mid lane to jungle. It was a difficult situation. You can see KDA 0.2, no kills and assists of 15, negative goal difference as well. And with all the experience he's gained, how much better has he gotten coming up against Memento, who's a jungler in form on a champion he's undefeated on?
Right, and that's the question we have to ask, because of course after he was replaced by Shook last split, that's when H2K went on that second half of the split tear and made their way back in towards playoffs. And now we're seeing the reverse of that effect after the same roster that had that great run has not found that same success. So by mixing up a few of those pieces, they're once again hoping to find that spark to, you know, get them towards that playoff run.
It's exactly what Tafisha was saying on the analyst desk as well. You know, just a different voice, a different energy, different placements. I mean, it is now legitimately a different team. So Roccat have to factor that into their prep. And of course, the man that may be the most hard-pressed right now in the early game is going to be Memento. We did a sort of a deeper dive on Memento's playstyle and decision-making as he's chased out of his own jungle by the Wolves. He spends a lot of his time around top and mid and less of his time around bots.
Yeah, and I expect we're going to see a very early top lane gank here, because what you can do is by taking four camps is usually the money point to hit level 3, but if you include 2 small wolves on top of your other 3 camps, that will get you to the level 3 point.
All right, we'll finish off that Memento story in a moment as Kadril jumps onto Blank. Now, of course, Memento, level 3, he can go mid, he can go top. You can look at his impact. 4th in kills and assists at 15, 4th with goal difference in lead. Spends 50, well, he's 5th in terms of the time he spends around his laners in jungle proximity. But the main thing is, he's the money maker for Roccat in the early game. And Memento right now may be giving up some money to Kadril. The hook shot comes up, Black Shield buys some time. Norscarin with the save. Devour flash over the wall, even body blocks The range shot and Memento escapes with his life. We build up all of this hype and expectation about Memento making the first play, and he's the recipient against Kadril.
Yeah, I love that from Kadril. Even Kadril still running and trying to find out Memento. It's only because he ran literally all the way back into his base that Kadril doesn't pick up the first blood right there, and he will be able to now steal away these camps from the bottom side of Rocat's jungler. It looks like Memento was just bested at level 3.
Man, unbelievable. Kadril managing to find him out, catch him out, maybe play around the pathing or just find him in his own jungle. What I really think was amazing is that Norscaron was there the millisecond he was needed. Able to leave the lane, Hiku on this Varus, able to get some lane control against Kai'Sa and Alistar. I don't think it's too surprising early.
Yeah, everyone's mouth starts watering once you see that Kindred mark in the bottom lane river. It's like, oh, which support's going to roam up first, which jungler's going to be waiting here, and that's why Kadril was able to predict the movement out of Memento to, camp in that pixel brush and wait for Memento to go in.
So it's very clear to all of our viewers, Ender, that a lot of our prep was around the junglers.
Yes.
So let's make sure we look at some of the other lanes as well, give them some love. Mundo into Aatrox. Aatrox was basically permabanned last week, and now some tweaks and nerfs to his early game, strengthening his late game. What do you make of this matchup? Because both of these top laners scale so well.
Yeah, it's true. The laning phase from Aatrox is so powerful, though. He has so much range with that Q that as the Mundo, you don't really get to do much. You see he's going to be trying to walk up an auto when he can, but more than likely, so he doesn't get sweet spotted down like that, just throw those briefcases out, get the last hits, and try to farm up until you hit level 6, and then you shouldn't be able to be killed by the Aatrox.
All right, 12 CS down already. Should be able to pick up most of these under the tower. When you see these sort of one-sided matchups early, how do you determine an acceptable CS deficit? What do you think is a fair amount?
It's hard to say because matchups, differ a lot. I'd say if you're under 10, that's usually good. Of course, the longer the game goes, the more leeway you have when that happens. So at 5 minutes, you probably don't want to be trailing 10 CS, but around the 10-minute mark, that becomes a little bit more bearable as a move.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that. It's currently hovering at 7. 7-8 CS, just a little over a wave in favor of SmittyJ. Memento, catch a glimpse of him back in his jungle. He himself is down 10 CS, just a minor amount. Obviously, it doesn't really impact the goal difference. And the last lane that we need to take a quick look at is Hiku and Norscaron, this Varus, Tahm Kench. They've already gone for an early back. Boots, attack speed dagger, as well as that longsword into the completed Berserker's Gruesome Sheriff.
Yeah, I'm on the side of Hiku, though. You know what that means? The longsword and the dagger?
Tell me what it means.
Blade of the Ruined King for the
go.
Varus. That's the build I like, and I'm happy to see it here.
All right, so how quickly can Hiku get it? That's the question. Keep our eyes on that one. Norscaron's going to gobble up the Rift Scuttler. Really donated to him and make sure that cannot be picked up or even threatened by Kadril.
See, that's really funny because I remember back in the days where the jungle smites, when you smote the wolf camp, it would actually create a sentinel that patrolled your jungle and kept it safe. And on Tahm Kench, you could actually drag it to the other side of the map and then kill it there, and then it would make it patrol your own side of the jungle. So
Vision OP.
Vision OP, and very much similar in this case, where you drag the Scuttle Crab away, make sure you get the smite, and then get the Vision of the River.
It's just really clever play. And again, Norscaron, he's leaving lane a fair amount. I mean, 6 minutes in, and the fact that he spent a considerable amount of time just stepping away, I think it's a testament to this matchup, that Piercing Arrow and the Hail of Arrows from Hiku. Going to do a lot of work to keep that lane in control and at a point where they're comfortable. Promiscu, by the way, he's already picked up those Swifty boots, so going to look for any sort of engages, any sort of opportunities. Looking at items, Execution is calling, and Kindle Gem. So SmittyJ potentially want to extend this gold lead even further, or the laning power even further.
The Grievous Wounds against the Dr. Mundo is going to be so vital in this matchup here for SmittyJ. And then as far as the Kindle Gem is concerned, cooldown reduction is the best stat you can possibly have on the Aatrox. Definitely want to get that as Kadril prepares for a gank in the bot side.
All right, Promiscu manages to get the headbutt and the pulverize. Devour comes down from Norscaron. He's got no flash available to him and spits out Hiku. A fairly rudimentary defense. Summoner Cleanse was all that was needed, but there was nothing else invested on the H2K side. No additional summoner spells.
Yeah, that was pretty easy escape there from Roccat, but still just trying to get some pressure here for Sheriff in the bottom lane. Now that Sheriff is level 6, the all-in threat from the duo of a Kai'Sa plus Alistar can be very strong with the CC from Alistar getting those passive stacks for the Kai'Sa. It lets her set up for the big hits damage, lets her ulti on in if she wants to find a kill, but we'll definitely need protection from Kadril to make those kinds of plays.
I mean, Kadril has sort of been more noticeable in this early game. I think maybe expected.
I mean, more noticeable than Memento, actually. It's been impressive from him, even though he hasn't gotten a kill.
Yeah, and of course we saw him catching out Memento earlier, needed to be saved. We saw the gank on the bottom lane. Promiscue's already moving with those Swifties to set up a room, but he is pinged out. Rocket are aware. Now, I like the proactive plays. I like the fact that H2K have made a pivot. I want to just remind all of our viewers of the all-time losing streak leaderboard. This is not an award you want to be winning. Origin in 2017, that fantastic 0-14 record, is the current placeholder. H2K in 2018, right now, this game, they are tied with the Mysterious Monkeys at 10 losses. If they lose to Roccat, they will be tied for second with Dragonborn. So there's a lot of history today, and we're teaching you about.
Yeah, you're teaching me all about
golden old days. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
looking for gank in top lane, maybe.
Celebrating the golden old days of losing streaks is maybe not the best way to
No.
educate you and bring up the youngins' knowledge base.
You know what? You have to learn about the dirt to be able to learn about all the trophies.
There we go. I like that. That is a very optimistic way of looking at things. And talking about the dirt, Kadril ate a briefcase to the face. He stood right on top of a ward, so Prophet was fully aware of his positioning. And of course, because Kadril showed top, it's just a very easy dragon so far. Sugar's going to get in range. Smite easily secures, and Dark Bite actually catches the hook shot. I'm not going to hold my breath for now once again. Norscarin in the right place at the right time.
And the Killer Instinct actually came out there from Sheriff as well. They were really trying to force a play around that Infernal Drake. Unfortunately, Tahm Kench is sort of an anti-fun champion where when you try to make a play happen, he literally just tells you no, slams the door in your face, and walks away with your dinner.
I think Tahm Kench and Morgana might be some of the most anti-fun champions in League of Legends, especially for me. They tilt me a lot.
We've got some other great ones too, like Dr. Mundo, really fun to try and take down, especially in a 1v1.
Aatrox in the laning
Aatrox.
phase. It's just a frustrating game for the average League of Legends player.
Team fighting against a Kindred.
There we go. We'll see what Kadril can do. Because he's got all, he's got all the lead right now. A little bit of momentum, a little bit of the guy dictating the pace, but unfortunately, the objectives are in Rocat's favor. They got the first Infernal.
Yeah, an interesting thing about this jungle matchup between Kindred and Camille, if we start looking for team fights later on into the game, Camille's ultimate actually knocks out every other champion besides the one she targets from that hexagon. So what happens is if Kadril tries to keep his teammates alive, all of a sudden Memento can press R on Kadril and bump everyone outside of that Lamb's Respite, which is a really strong tool to have in a team fight.
Oh, very, very powerful. And then it's just a matter, the irony is that is then anti-synergy with your Shockwave. So we need to see what, the correct order that it's going to land. And we need to see what sort of coordination Rocket have, because you have to assume that the later this game goes, theoretically, the more comfort Rocket will have. They've been playing together a longer time. They haven't had the substitutions and the role swap that you can see Shook in the mid lane. So, if Rocket and H2K stay at the status quo, from a team coordination and team calls type of position, Rocket should have an advantage.
It's true, but on the side of actual scaling, you think of champions like Kindred and Kai'Sa as scaling very, very well into the late game. Even the Aatrox, prior to this patch, you wouldn't consider him to be a teamfight god later on, but after the cooldown changes to that E, making it so that he can dash so much more frequently in late game fights, he is still going to be a serious threat post 30-40 minutes.
And especially against the Varus. I mean, once the Devours on cooldown are not available, it's pretty easy to catch Varus out, but come on, Protect as well as Devour. There are tools here for Roccat to defend. Tower First Blood is available, but Roccat not going to commit for it just yet. Content to the chip damage. And, I do bring up the game times because, as much as I love to talk about stats and whatnot, we're looking at H2K and saying, well, they're losing less badly. And I prove that. Hold on, don't turn your nose up at me, Ender. Look at the average game time of H2K. They lost their games in week 2 quicker than they lost their games in week 5, which means that they're losing less badly. It's a fact. It's a quick stat.
All I see here is that the game's going to end in 42 minutes, quick shot.
Okay, well
that's the pattern I'm seeing.
Okay, your prediction is on the board.
But the issue is that if we're looking at patterns, the other pattern is that H2K lose all their games, and that's an issue.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Definitely not in the playoff race. Last split, I think they were 1-7 before they started to turn it around. They will need some mathematical miracles to bring it back. They are not yet, mathematically speaking, eliminated, but the odds are not in their favor. Definitely not the lead character in the Hunger Games.
Yeah, and after losing that Rift Shield, I think Roccat will be making a play for this bottom lane turret. The sort of race is on now as Kadril drops the Herald to try and break down that top outer.
Okay, bottom tower is significantly lower in HP. How does the charge work out? Hikyu, 1 or 2 more autos. There we go. Tower first blood and a momentary 700 gold lead. In terms of CS advantages, in favor to Roccat as well in the bottom lane, but a significant advantage in the top lane. But now take a look at this positioning. Prophet, Sadism is on cooldown, and Norskeren has already made it to the top lane. He's looking for Kadril. SmittyJ throws down the world ender. He's running for his life. First blood picked up to blank.
The coordination right there between Norskeren and Memento, timing the CC chain as soon as Norskeren was going to spit him out, just goes to show how well these players work together with each other. That, I believe, was a summoner teleport swapped to by Norskeren via the unsealed spellbook to make that gank happen and secure first blood for Roccat.
Oh, it's very well played. Tower first blood, first actual blood, first dragon. We're approaching 15 minutes on the clock. And Roccat are just in a very, very good position. This was the replay. I didn't actually quite see how Norskeren.
Yeah, so what actually happened, I believe the ward was dying as soon as he teleported on into it. So on the minimap, the actual interaction, you couldn't see it anymore, but he still came through nonetheless, thanks to that unsealed spellbook, and the coordination for Roccat really showed up.
Yeah, really nicely done. And you know how much I love my stats. When Roccat secure first blood, they have a 100% win rate. And last week when we were looking, when Roccat had a lead at 15 minutes, they also had a 100% win rate. Let's see if they can do that again. Flash engage from promisQ, not going to find his target. Defensive flash over the wall from Hikyu, running for his life, but Sheriff shuts him down with a killer instinct. H2K are on the board. They managed to get one, and now they're trying to make it out of the jungle.
Nice to see H2K, though, grouping up even after a botched play in the top side and forcing something to happen there. Sheriff getting very aggressive with the flash forward, and now that he's got himself his own completed Stormrazor, H2K can try to take some of these fights.
All right, H2K still even. It's a 500 gold difference. I mean, this is touching distance. It's so close. And H2K have to prove that their Kadril and Sheriff combination can make these team fights work because they don't really have a tank. There's not a traditional tank on the front line, and they've got to get through a fair amount of HP bars in the Mundo and the grey health of the Norskeren Tahm Kench. So they've got the damage to do it, though.
Yep, and they're playing around the top side of the map at the moment while Roccat are completely focused down bottom. The reason why that play was actually able to happen is all this vision control on the northern half of the map for H2K. It was absolutely fantastic. They saw Hikyu coming from a mile away, and the way the game is sort of shaken out is this divide straight down the middle lane, and because H2K have been able to, trade relatively evenly across the board, it has looked pretty good for them so far. Of course, in this play, all the vision we just talked about showed H2K exactly where Roccat were coming from. One of the wards was used to teleport in from SmittyJ and help set up for that kill onto Hikyu.
Yeah, definitely the case. H2K going to be very happy with that one. Even happier that it goes to Sheriff. You absolutely want to accelerate this Kai'Sa. It's going to be one of the tools needed to unlock H2K's first win. And unlike our first game, Ender, we have a very balanced affair. We've got a very even setup between the two respective teams. Item power spikes are bang on even, despite the differences. Prophet going for Sunfire Cape versus SmittyJ's Black Cleaver, so obviously leaning into their champion-specific strengths. Let's set some expectations for the next 10 minutes. Other than SmittyJ trying to kill anybody that's in his lane, what else do these teams want to do?
Ooh, I'm actually looking here towards Sheriff just a little bit because that item build, it's a little bit of a change for us because it's the Stormrazor build as opposed to the Ginsu's Rageblade. Ginsu's gives you a little bit more later game team fighting, whereas I think H2K want to keep looking to force fights here alongside with the tools of promisQ and Sheriff to find more picks like they did just a few minutes ago.
All right, taking a good summoner spells. promisQ doesn't have his flash yet, still sitting on the Hex Flash. Sheriff without his flash, that tends to be a naysayer when it comes to really going for those big engages. On the LCS level, they love to play it a little safer. Kadril manages to go up to 3 stacks, and now he's running for his life. Lamb's Respite just to buy some time. That'll be enough for SmittyJ to arrive. A stack for the cost of your ultimate cooldown, that is definitely worth it. Unfortunately, probably not with Roccat also picking up that tower.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate there for H2K, because I think Cadril would have loved to pick up that mark, maybe continue pressuring around this bottom side of the map. And you can see, even though H2K have some tools to look for picks, they're still playing entirely around Smitty J. They know he's on this Aatrox. Such a high value to be placed on this champion means that you will invest the resources, and you will be able to redeem those later on into the game as he continues to pressure out Prophet in the sideline.
And so important, one stack away from that extra range, the extra tools. All right, the Abyssal Voyage comes down. Memento and Norscarin looking for some sort of engage. Now, Prophet decides to back away. Prophet not going to over-chase. That definitely was the right call. Rocket maintain a 1,000 gold lead, a 2 dragon lead, and a single tower lead. So it's not a stomping of a game, but it is still Rocket favored. It still feels like it's 60% in their control just based on all the metrics that you can see.
And the reason why it feels to me like Rocket is in control, because I'm just looking at Norscarin and Memento. They're walking around the map almost everywhere together, trying to look and force plays with the Abyssal Voyage, with the power of the Camille. And even though they only do have that 1 kill on the board, you can see that they've totally reversed the vision control that H2K once had. Now they're the ones putting in some deep vision and buying some protection for Prophet in the bottom side.
Yeah, and of course, let's turn our attention to Shook. You know, I think we've covered the Cadril story and impact fairly well. Shook, mid lane Morgana, he's down, what's that, 28 CS. Matchup that I think maybe is a little difficult, but what do you make of this when you think about Morgana's and Zoriana's? Because it doesn't look like any further action.
He's not inting. That's a great thing for H2K. He's playing mid lane Morgana. He's there to farm, clear some waves with the W. You know, it's all good. As long as he's literally not down like ludicrous amounts, it's totally fine for them, because where they want to have advantages is bottom lane and the jungle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's definitely is the case for now in terms of Sheriff. But unfortunately for H2K, they're just, again, caught a little bit napping. You know, that's the second tower in a row where Rocket have picked it up without any sort of contest. Yes, H2K were able to secure at least a mark for Cadril, but it's simply, I don't think, worth. It's 2,000 gold down. H2K now will have some uncontested time on this mid lane tower, but Chain of Corruption is available for Hikyu. Starts to spread.
That's a teleport.
The Black Shield's a little bit late, and the teleport coming in from behind. Shockwave whiffs as Cadril's able to use the Dancer Barriers to get around the back. There's no sadism available, but everybody's in the melee! Blanc takes out Cadril. Lamb's Spike wasn't even used. That's simply not good enough. Promiscu gets killed as well, and another onto Smitty J. Rocket wipe H2K.
Prophet comes in for the flank right there. Norscarin immediately heads off towards the Baron. It's just Sheriff left alive, and he cannot contest this objective.
Absolutely not. Sheriff goes to farm up what he can.
What? Norscarin, what? Come on, bro.
Norscarin can save everybody else's life. He cannot save his own. There are gigantic smiles and laughs on the face of that Norwegian wonder kid. But Rocket now exemplary team fight in the mid lane.
Yeah, we have to watch here and see what CC locks down Cadril to stop the Lamb's Respite, because it's actually huge. He dodges away from the Shockwave, which looks fantastic for him, but unfortunately, it's when he comes in here at the end, I believe, was nothing actually stopped him from using. He just didn't press that button, and that cost his team so dearly.
Oh, such a difficult scenario to be in. Rocket, they managed to turn this one around, and I think in a straight-up team fight, I prefer Rocket's team composition. It makes more sense to me. There's more synergies.
That's after he died to Baron.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that one for me.
The people needed to know.
Well, Norscarin's done such a good job with those Devours all game long. I think we'll let that one slide. We saw the Void Seeker rather, coming out from Sheriff. He decided not to pull the Killer Instinct. I wondered if there was some sort of opportunity to go in. And Rocket, in 60 seconds of play, they jump 6,000 gold and Baron buff and potentially an Infernal, but this one, H2K can contest.
Yeah, H2K are already making their way over, but it's just a little bit too late. Now, what do? They go back and try to clear wave minions for the next 3 minutes of this Baron.
Man, I was really expecting them to go a little bit more aggressive into that play. I suppose into a team with Baron buffs that has recalled after killing Baron and spending that gold, it's a difficult scenario to be in, and H2K will at least get themselves a reply turret, I suppose. The second of their game. Dark Binding doesn't find any targets. Sheriff decides to go in with Killer Instinct. optimistic at best and it doesn't pay off.
Yeah, not really sure what the idea was right there with the Tahm Kench sitting next to Hikyu. The play was not going to result in a kill, a little bit of a wasted cooldown, I feel. And right now, with the way that Roccat are moving, almost looks like Profit is trying to come down and collapse onto H2K if they were just going to overstay a few more seconds.
I immediately looked at the teleport time as Memento baiting that hook shot engage, jumping all the way to the wall and decides to go backwards, not forwards. But at the end of the day, Roccat with absolute control, and they're on the aggressive.
Yeah, and they've actually stopped H2K from getting recalls off. There's a massive minion wave building up in the bottom lane that Roccat are going to be the first ones to rotate down on over towards, and that should potentially net them a turret.
Yeah, absolutely the case. Look at the minimap. I think the top lane is pushing in favor of Roccat as well. So multiple threats on multiple fronts.
Okay.
Look at that. Command attack and command dissonance, and Shook just gets burned through. Now Smitty J is in trouble. World Ender is thrown down. He's trying to escape with his life. The tower is the focus. Killer Instinct
Look at the mid lane.
Sheriff. He simply cannot engage. H2K are spread far too thin. They're spread far too wide. And this is one of the frustrations when you have those substitutions. Different communication, different players, and now H2K are being decimated where they stand. 2 quick kills in favor of Roccat. Cadril manages to find his ultimate this time around. Memento not gonna get taken out, does in fact a moment later, but it is at the cost of 2 inhibitor turrets as well as entire team. H2K are aced and Roccat are destroying their base.
I mean, this game started off slow, but as soon as Roccat found that team fight in mid lane, got the Baron, it was all go ahead here for Roccat for the win.
3.5 minutes is all it took for Roccat to win after one team fight. Roccat destroy H2K. And H2K now have the second longest loss streak in the EU LCS at the hands of Roccat. Roccat maintain their binary playstyle, and with a lead at 15 minutes, they win.
But that's not good news for them, because that might mean they lose tomorrow against Vitality. That's the toss-up, right? Do you win against H2K, or do you let them beat you, and then maybe you pick up the win against Vitality?
Was that the curse of Roccat? 1-1 every week.
It's a 1-1 every week.
It was a improvement on the early game for H2K. They went even with Roccat. Now, to be fair, I think Roccat played that one safe. I do have a follow-up question for you, Ender. What was the game time?
24 minutes and 50 seconds.
We've regressed. We've regressed. My quick stat about longer game times didn't pan out.
To be fair, it's a different team, so you can maybe
Touché.
shrug that one off.
You're 100% right. New team, new roster. Therefore, new records need to start for the players.
Yeah, I
not
just
for the
don't want you to.
organization.
I just don't want you to be wrong and then find you sleeping in the studio
Thank you.
again.
Thank you very much.
Like,
Yeah,
it's just really not a good look for you, man.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. Have to get sent home, loaded up into the car. But Roccat, very good performance, 6 and 5. Definitely one of the dark horses. As we look towards that playoff race, they're sitting, I think, tied for 5th at the moment, depending on how those head-to-heads shape up. They're in the running, they're in the race. And it's just even until one team fight past the 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's sort of a good thing to see out of them too, because usually it is an explosive early game from Memento that's been able to snowball them into an early win, and then when they fall behind or don't get an advantage, that's when they tend to struggle. But seeing them against H2K go even for so long and then out team fight their opponents is a good sign moving forward.
It is. That team fight at 20 minutes, I have a replay for you that I absolutely want to look at. And, you know, it's H2K starting on the tower and maybe a little bit of a late Black Shield that starts this whole chain of events off.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going on in this team fight, but one thing is true. Hikyu was not being touched during this fight, getting off so much DPS consistently. No one quite able to dive onto him and threaten him out meant that he was going to tear H2K apart.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. Very, very good performance. This time round, of course, the team fights. And we have to look at 3 players who are impactful in those team fights. Noscera, Memento, Blanc. They're looking to secure player of the game. They need your vote. Head over to LOL Esports on Twitter. Last game, you didn't listen to me, you didn't vote for Mickey, and I was disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah, the fans, they don't care what you have to say, unfortunately.
Yeah,
they just care about people flashing forward and getting kills on Draven.
The brutality of that statement. Listen, Vitality will be coming up next. They've lost 3 games in a row. They are bringing in Kikis to start in place of Gilius. We'll have some answers from Yamata Cannon on exactly why that changed after the break. and Norskeren has already made it to the top lane. He's looking for Kadril. Smitty J throws down the world ender. He's running for his life. First blood picked up to Blank. There's no sadism available, but everybody's in the melee. Blank takes out Kadril. Lambda Spike wasn't even used. That's simply not good enough. Promiscu gets killed as well. Absolutely not. Sheriff goes to farm up what he can.
What? Norskeren, what? Come on, bro.
Norskeren can save everybody else's life for Roccat to win after one team fight. Roccat destroy H2K.